we're going to start our meeting. Mayor Franco is at a graduation, so she's going to be with us on speakerphone. Today's date is May the 28th, 2025. Time is 4:06. At the Heber Light and Power, 31 South, 100 West, Heber City, Utah. The directors that are here is Kevin Payne from Midway, myself from Charleston, Wasatch County Rep Kendall Crittenden, Heber City Rep Aaron Cheatwood, and has anybody heard from Sid?
Please excuse Brenda because of being out of town.
Okay, so Sid won't be here. Okay. So we want to welcome everybody and thank everybody for coming, and we'll go into the approval of a consent agenda, which includes the April 23rd, 2025 board meeting minutes, April 2025 financial statement, April 2025 warrants. Is there any questions on any of them? If not, I'll
make a motion to approve the consent items.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion's made by Kendall, seconded by Aaron. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's 5. Carried. Okay. Now we're going to move on to number 2. Discussion and comment on service fee increase for 40 amp service. Jonathan Russell, are you here? Okay.
Oh, shucks. Could you sneak in?
Yeah, I don't know protocol is here. But,
Just set.
You can say that. We're not that.
That way it'll catch you out. The mayor can hear it.
Yeah, that way the mayor can hear you.
Very good. My name is Jonathan Russell. I live in Midway. I'm the neighbor of Kevin Payne, and I bought property up here about 10, 12 years ago, and never intended to build up here, but ended up doing so about 3 years ago. I retired early and built a nice little home, and I'm trying to be very efficient with my monies. But I've noticed that in the last few years with COVID and everything else, that everything keeps going up exponentially. And the solution seems to be, well, let's just increase the budget and we'll just get it from the taxpayer. And I noticed on a letter from you guys a couple of months ago that you're increasing the service fee 100% overnight for those that have a 400 amp system. Now, I've only got 2 people in my home, my wife and myself, and we are very low utilizers. So that's a little frustrating. It may not be a lot of money, but a little bit here and a little bit there, and everybody else that's trying to extract more money every year adds up over time. I put in a 400 amp system, and the only reason why I did that is because my builder said, why don't you think about the future? And in case you need to get an electric car or whatever, you'll have a greater bandwidth to have the power that you need. I've looked at my recent bills, and they're very inexpensive. But then you add on, I don't know what demand is, service fee, and then you got all these crazy taxes. Midway seems to think we're a resort facility, a town, so they've got to add because we're now a resort. I don't know why that is, but when I first moved here, 40% of the fees comprised my bill. It's now jumped in less than 3 years, 72% of my bill is fees, okay? I know that you voted on this, you've already made up your mind, but I wanted to voice my concern. There are individuals that live in my area that have been here for generations. I've got one neighbor that he's a seminary teacher. He's got 6 kids, and every time he turns around, he's getting beat up with taxes. Just an example, my property taxes were like $4,500 when I moved up here 3 years ago, and then overnight they turned into $12,000. I went to the city, fought that. I went to the state and fought it, and now they're down to a reasonable area. I'm the only one I know that's done that, but I had to go to a judge and plead my case, and I did win. This to me is just, even though it's small, it's gouging. I'm not utilizing enough power to justify getting dinged for it. I've talked with some people within your, with Heber Power, and they're frustrated too because they're having to pay these increases. And my thought is, you know, why are you charging people just because just to give an analogy, I buy a vehicle and it's got a 20-gallon gas tank. I don't need that. Maybe I just need a 12 or a 15. Well, you're charging me just because I have the opportunity to put in that amount of gas. Well, I'm not using a lot of electricity. Charge me for what I use. Don't just add on fees because that's a good way of getting more money. It doesn't seem right. There are several within our facilities that have secondary homes within our HOA. And these guys are building multi-million-dollar homes, huge estates. They're buying 2 lots and combining them. And they can afford to do this. They can pay these. It's a secondary. You know, one thing that I think you and I talked about was why not go after those that have secondary homes? I was told that we have to have enough power in case these people all show up over a July weekend, and we have to be prepared for that. Well, we charge more for homeowners that it's a secondary home. It's in the tax record. Why not go after them? If that's what is causing this concern with Heber Valley.
You're aware secondary home pays 100% the tax.
They pay 100%.
Primary gets 45%.
We pay 45% of that 1%. I know that. I don't have a secondary home. But the concern was that I heard is we've got to be prepared for these secondary homes that come every once in a while and they may need more power. But it just seems to me that every time we turn around, well, let's get a consultant. And of course they want to earn their keep. Well, the answer is always going to be just increase your rates. It's, you know, I've got to prove that I'm worth the X number of dollars you're paying me. It's increase your rate. So that in a nutshell is what I'm, you know, not only that, when I bought my 200 amp system, now it's $6,700 to buy a 200 amp system. 400 amp systems, double that, 13,000 and change. I'm not using it. It's just there for one day, potentially, that I might need it. If I knew that I was going to get dinged, I would have gotten a 200 amp system. And if that's the case, go ahead and put in a 200 amp system and give me a refund and just charge me what I'm using. This is just one way to, you know, get more money. So it's reasonable, it's sensible. So that is my case, and I leave it there. Thoughts, questions? Do you agree, disagree?
Jason, can you?
Yeah.
I apologize, I'm drawing a little bit of a blank. Can you refresh us as to the rationale?
Yeah, when UFS, Mr. Beauchamp came and did the rate study, and Jonathan also alluded to the impact fees, and he's done the impact fee studies as well. And that's some of the frustrations that we're hearing, not just from Jonathan, but from others, you know, with this latest increase, you know, there's, I don't remember the exact number, but I think there's 550 so 400 amp services on our system.
We got 673.
Jerry
responded, 5% of the total.
So yeah, it's a small number based on, you know, total customers. But when, you know, those rate analysts do their studies, you know, they look at, you know, the cost of the service fee. And if you're, you know, got a very large service that we have to, you know, service, and you're lumped into a class with a bunch of people that use very little energy, that have a very large service on their home. That's why that class stood out. That's why Mark recommended raising that service fee, literally doubling it. And that's because, you know, it just lumps in, and I'm in the same boat. Like I told Jonathan, I put on a 400 amp service just in case. But it's my only residence, it's my primary residence. And, you know, that service fee doubles for me as well. You know, it's like I told Jonathan, the board's got to hear this so that when we engage a rate consultant again, that he can look at that 400 amp fee and make sure that it's, number one, being accurately charged. You know, is there 100 of those customers that are full-time and using energy every day? Can that be carved out? You know, you got to keep in mind that prior to this last rate deal, it was over 400 amp that had that large service fee. This time, we went down and grabbed 400 amp and above. And so that brought in, you know, several hundred more customers that, according to cost of service, we were under collecting from. Now, you know, without diving hard into the numbers and everything else, I'm guessing that we were collecting okay for the runs that were using energy annually. We were under collecting on the ones that aren't using energy very often. So the second homes, like Jonathan talked about, where you're still maintaining that service, you're still getting calls from those customers. You're still, you know, they're still customers. I mean, I fielded calls from people that only use their house during, you know, a weekend ski or a week-long ski trip, that have a large service that are upset about this thing too, you know. But that particular customer I talk to, you know, several times a year, even though they're not here, they have security systems and various things that have them call us and service that home, you know. And so that's kind of where I think we've got to challenge Mark the next time, is to make sure that that fee and that doubling of that fee was fair and equitable to, you know, those 400 amp service customers. So
Help me, Jason, with, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
Is there an easy way to distinguish between the ones that are using
yeah,
that versus the
No, we
ones
have-
that are not, or is that
we have-
difficult to?
we have the data. It's just a little deeper dive into that service and service size class customers to kind of differentiate between the ones that are actually using kilowatt hours and the ones that aren't, you know. So that's just something that probably didn't get looked at.
Is it easy enough if there was to be a differentiation between the two? Is it easy enough to do that without?
Well, I think
taking a
you're
bunch of
gonna
extra?
get pushback if you have, I mean, this is just my opinion, but you will get pushback if you break a class, not an amperage. But, you know, because he's looking at the service size and the cost to service it. And like I say, that customer that's not using any energy, but is still calling you still got to produce a bill for them. You still got to do all those things that's covered in that service fee.
And if they show up and demand it, they gotta have it there.
But they're not using energy to help pay for that. And so they were being subsidized by the lower amp services. So the 400 amp, the cost of service clearly showed that the 400 amp customers and above were being subsidized by, say, a 100 amp service or a 200 amp service. You know, it wasn't equitable across. Now, did we go too far? That's what we got to really push the consultant on when he looks at it again. You know, and the board committed to looking at this annually, so it's going to get looked at again.
One of the things that I'm having trouble with, Jason, because I'm hearing, and I think it's beneficial to hear the customer, you know, hear the public complaint, hear the customer complaint, but the usage is to, usage bills theoretically are to offset cost of production, right? Either cost of buying or producing power, right? So theoretically, the usage and the bill make good sense. But my understanding is these kind of fees, like your service fees, is to offset the cost of our total infrastructure and our aging infrastructure and the ability to hit max peak demand if it happened, right? That doesn't, to me, I'm trying to treat this up like that doesn't have anything to do with usage to me. It's still there. To his point, he said,
You're not
just a moment.
charging 200 amp systems, just 400 above.
Just a moment. I understand that. Let me clarify my question. There is the option, as you mentioned, for the homeowner to say, okay, I'm going to pull out all these circuits. This is an extreme option, but it is an option, right? I'm going to pull these circuits out. They're dead ends now. I'm going to replace my panel with a smaller service where there's less breakers in here. There's less ability for me to pull, and thereby I want to drop to a 200 amp service. That would get them out of that class, but that would also lessen our need to prepare for a potential 400 amp draw because they can't draw more than 200 amps. So theoretically, like that's the resolution, right? Now, let me true up with what you said is
It's an expensive resolution to the customer, and I'm not recommending that.
sure,
But yeah,
but it is an option, right?
like the impact fee is a whole lot more for the 400 amp service. So, you going down your train of thought, that customer doesn't want to, have those costs, change that service size out to a 200 amp service. They get a credit on the impact fee because they paid 400 amp, they're going to 200 amp. So they get that credit back, the difference, and then they go to a different service fee as well. It's just, it's just kind of a pain. I do think we need to challenge Mark on, because that was the one fee that literally
That was a big jump.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the deal though, and this is I feel like I would be in the exact same position. I'd be just as upset if I were you. I'm telling you right now. Like, frankly, that if my bill doubled, it'd be a hard thing. I'd rather than stay out, keep power on. I'm gonna have to find another job or something.
Not the whole.
I would really
bill,
feel
it's
like
just that one fee.
Well, I would really feel that was my point. Like, I'm not lessening that at all. But the entire messaging from our board this year with the rate increase has been, we have consistently for years now been undercharging, and we are in a financial situation right now that is untenable. We are falling below our credit. We would have fallen. We didn't actually, but we would have fallen below our credit rating ratio, whatever that ratio was called. Help me with the ratio. Debt service coverage, which could have increased our rates, could have increased, or could have even resulted at the very worst case then some kind of a calling of the bonds and something that would have been really financially problematic. And our message to the ratepayers is, you are all seeing increases because we have for a long time been under collecting. Jason, you said that if people below 400 were subsidizing 400, that's been unfair to the people below on 400 for however long it's been happening.
Yeah.
So
I will say that the board was super focused with, going back to, make sure that, these larger services were not being subsidized by, the smaller services, which generally get into your, low income, fixed income categories.
sure.
And you guys were very clear about that with Mark. I know on a couple times you met with him. That
Right.
You wanted that corrected. So.
Well, I think it's a little unfair to make a statement that, you hire a consultant and he says, well, the way to justify my fee is to just double the rates.
Yeah.
I would suggest, if you really want to know, I think Mr. Beauchamp is very thorough, very knowledgeable and experienced, not just here, but across the nation on how these work. And I suspect it's still online. I don't remember which board meeting, but go listen to his explanations he made to the board when we made that decision, his justification for doubling that and why it needed to happen. And I think you'll understand it a little bit better. And that he's not just charging us to make up his fee, let's double it.
I've been in his shoes,
Well,
but in healthcare.
yeah.
And I know there's a way that you can go into the data, you can mine it, you can query data and find out exactly who's using what, and you can determine exactly who should be paying more.
Well, I think we've said
Yeah.
next year when we do that again, we'll have him take a look at that side.
All I'm doing is voicing my
Yeah.
disgust. Because before you turn, I can afford this increase. It's not gonna hurt me at all. It's not gonna change it. But it annoys me that I have a 400 amp system that I'm not utilizing just in case one day. It's just like, example, I bought a car, I got a bigger gas tank, I want to fill it up. Well, charge me for the gas. Do it through that way. Just because of the potential to fill it up doesn't mean I'm going to. I'm very conservative. I mean, you're playing with other people's money, and I know you're an ongoing business, but you should live within your means as well.
Oh.
Salt Lake City. I was on a board with Murray City, a volunteer position where I know what Murray City Power did. We owned our own utility company. And I know how they did things as well. I would just, the solution is always increase rates. And it's going to get to a point where you're forcing good people to leave their homes that shouldn't, whether it's taxes, fees, whatever. When does it stop? When does it stop? At any rate, I appreciate your time. I know that I don't want to take it too much of it. So,
Mayor, were you trying to say something?
I hope, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Mr. Russell, I'm sorry I'm not there to see you in person and discuss in a better way. I am out of town for a son's graduation. We are paying the increased rates too. And as you well know, with your previous experience, it's not going to stop because of number one, inflation, number two, supply chain issues, number three, tariffs that are making our economy very volatile, which makes even the production of energy volatile too, as well as a tight labor market. We are not trying to be unfair to you. We really have to look at your capacity needs as well as all of the 400 amp capacity needs in the future, and then provide not only reliable service, but also backup measures. And it's not going to get less expensive. I am sorry. I wish I had better news on that one, but that's all we've seen since COVID is the volatility and the increases in every aspect when it comes to energy production. So I'm sorry. I wish I had better news for you there. We really appreciate your time and that you care. And boy, we would encourage you, if you wanted to run for office, not against Kevin, but we'd encourage you to do that because we really need good minds to help us make these decisions. Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.
I think this though brings up an issue because at the time that we were looking at this, I believe that we were kind of lumping in this 400 amp issue, all those customers into kind of one basket.
Yeah.
And we could split them up.
And there's actually two
Yeah.
potential categories within that. The ones that are really utilizing the 400 amp service. And I understand we still need the capacity to be able to do that in the future. But then we also have those that, like in this example, both of you have the 400 amp and aren't utilizing.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a reason to split them though. I hear what you're saying. Like we can go deeper, but if usage is billed through usage and potential is billed through fees, then we made the right decision. And the way to fix it is to reduce the potential and thereby reduce the overhead. Because that was the problem, right? I mean, usage across the board. The only alternative is to charge a higher rate for the 400 amp service people, but that doesn't make sense.
You're making the argument, Mark will make that on parsing it. So
The solve, I think, and it's not a great solve, but the solve, I think, is if this number is accurate, there will be less people, correct me, but I think there will be less people that build to a 400 just in case, because now it's
I'm going to play devil's advocate on this in that aspect, because there's those that are utilizing it now. I understand we're talking about the capacity, but if there's this subset group that just put it in for kind of insurance in the future, but have no intent of using it potentially forever, is there a way that we can kind of have a two-step process that kind of kicks them into paying when they're utilizing.
That's what we need to talk to Mark about
Right.
when this
And I don't
comes
know
up
if
again.
you can throttle it down so that all you can do is up to 200 amp. I don't know
Yeah,
if you can do
yeah.
that. Just like
That-
internet.
But I
The
think,
meter, I guess.
I think that right now, there's really nothing we can do until we get into our next fee study, which will be coming out January, February, when?
We'll see it soon.
Yeah, it'll be 2026.
Yeah. And so I think that then we can dive into this a little more deeper and check and make sure that we can maybe do something, maybe we can't. We just need to wait and see. But-
My biggest concern is that eventually the service fee is going to be greater than the
Yeah.
electricity we use.
Yeah.
But I know that this is just expressing my thoughts
Yeah.
and I'm sharing
It's
this
great
with
that you
you.
took care of the.
And we,
We have about 100 homes in our HOA and I don't know how many are in this boat, but there are a few.
we
I don't
just
think
want
there's any
you to
discussion
understand that we
continue
want
to
to
change the service fee.
hear everything you
supposed to
have to say.
Put it where it ought
And
to
we
be, right?
appreciate you
Yeah.
coming and taking the
Okay.
time out of
We
your
keep
busy
getting
night.
better.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming in.
All right,
Thank you, Mr. Russell.
thank you.
Just to refresh my recollection of magnitude here. What is the difference in the service fee?
Can you pull it up? I went from about, so that 400 amp, like I say, the 400 amp is the one that changed dramatically.
Right.
And it went from about 17 something dollars
To 30.
35.
to 35.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, it almost doubled, whereas the other ones went up, you know,
15%.
more like the 13% type increase. So,
And again, the reason for the big was everybody else was subsidizing that 400 amp.
I'm not minimizing, the service fee in any way, but if I can recall our electric bill as a percentage, that's such a small amount.
yeah.
Well,
Okay,
theoretically, it's $220 impact for somebody that wanted
Yeah.
to be overbuilt in case.
A year.
If you want to be overbuilt in case, it might cost you $220 more.
I think we need to move on because we've got
We got a bunch.
a bunch of stuff to do and we would like to be out of here by 5:45. So let's,
Go for it, Brenda.
don't laugh because I've got to leave at 5:45.
Oh, I just can't see you. The audio camera's not working or else I feel like I could help out here. So when you
That's
leave,
fine.
maybe
I'll
Kendall or
let you know.
okay.
We won't have anything left when Brenda leaves.
We're gonna be done.
She'll beat us right
Oh,
now.
Yes.
we'll see about that one, but keep going.
Okay, number 2, discussion and, that's the one we just done. Discussion on Heber Valley Railroad land lease. Jason, this is you.
Yeah, so in the board packet, get to Mark, feel free to come sit right here.
Jason, if you could put the map up on the screen, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm getting to that.
Thank you.
So, there we are. So, in talking to Mark, when we redo this campus or even prior to getting into there, this is what I sent Mark. I haven't had a chance to talk to him about it. We just couldn't touch base on it. But what this is just moving our fence line to the west side of this easement. This is the high pressure gas line, which really isn't going to ever move. And instead of our fence being out here where it is today, moving that fence line into here.
Is that 20 feet, 50, 15
I don't know exactly how many feet it is. I know this easement is 30 feet from center of pipe. And
To
so
the
right now,
eastern
we're,
easement.
you know, somewhere out here in no man's land. You can kind of see our fence line right there.
So it looks like almost 50 feet plus.
Yeah.
Up top and.
Yeah, but it's mostly encumbered by this gas.
So that,
gas.
so that go down a bit, that high power gas line, you're only showing it there, but it must turn
It
at
turns
300 south and go to the east, right? Because remember when,
up here, yeah.
when the other plan
Goes
was that
to
they'd be crossing
Goes
that
to a
line
valve and it comes over here and ties into a line that's
in the street.
in 600 right here.
Okay.
See, I thought that that was just a center line for the gas line, but I think that the railroad's interested in more property to the west, to the driveway, hopefully farther than just that line next to the buffer line for the gas line. So what about, Jason, the property that's further west by the driveway on the north?
Does she mean that shaded driveway right there, right?
The shaded driveway, right?
Oh,
Somewhere,
What you got?
somewhere, no, not that far. No, just to the driveway, the first driveway there on 300
See the
South.
shaded driveway in the gate.
The gate, yeah, somewhere
Okay.
around this driveway, kind of on sort of that line straight down. But then when it gets further south, if you can somehow now show that on the picture, please. I know that middle building will be torn out and you need room to drive around that southern building. So it might just be kind of, you know, shifted the farther it gets south because of the need to get around that final most southern building. What do you think about that area on the south? How much room is possible there, given your need
Well,
to?
I think you got two entities that are outgrowing their land. So
Yes.
we gotta find a happy medium here, you know,
Right.
so
If I can,
go ahead and
and
drive
this won't
more.
help you, Mayor, because you'll see what I'm pointing at. But for me, You
Okay.
can zoom out and have a little bit bigger view, especially down at the bottom, or just put the image up so we can see the railroads. No, I meant, sorry, I meant
Zoom in,
zoom.
Oh, it's a smaller picture.
Small.
make it smaller.
So you can
Go
see
the other way.
So you can see all of it.
Yeah, so this is what I wanted to show you, but if you looked at the whole thing, I think that you all are familiar with Lane Lithgow's famous pretty picture that
Latest pretty picture.
caused so much fun for everyone. But that plan
You missed it.
assumes a possible future where 600 West gets closed. And if that future came to be someday, then the railroad would need a way to get semi trucks and regular business in through right here, because 600 West would be closed. And so more than worrying about this, we're trying to think of a potential future where we have to get into our parking lot through here somehow. And so in the very big picture, that's a future that's why we said this, to try and plan for that potential future that if 600 West got closed someday and other changes started to happen, that we would be landlocked and not be able to get into our mechanical shop or into our existing depot. Now, it's true that, so you can see this is the existing fence line. It's kind of on that angle right there. That we would like to be able to have a little bit more room in here to do some things if that worked. But the primary issue for me is the long-term question of if that happened, could we get in access? That's really what the discussion is.
Mark, can you lay out, if you were to help me lay out a new west line that would be the railroad's wish list?
There is a west line there now, but
So-
he wants it a little
Well, if
farther.
that fence is not there now, it's showing.
Right.
See this line on this building right here?
Yes.
I just, before we came over, went and spray painted on our curb along here. And if I do a straight line to there, it's 59 feet from the edge of this building to the corner of the fence.
The existing fence.
The existing fence that goes this way,
Yeah.
From this corner of the fence. I went and drew kind of a straight line from that and said, if a road was 26 feet wide, and then there was another 33 feet to the fence.
So if you took, you took that line, go on the thing there where you said you,
You mean right there?
right there, you run an angled out there. You'd run it, you wish, I guess, it'd be to
No.
run it up that
No,
way.
no. When we spoke, that's not our wish at all. Ideally would be most of where the dirt is.
Yeah. So Mark, again, I apologize. Move your finger on an ideal west property line,
West?
westerly property.
From
line.
300 south
300.
towards you.
Yes.
All
I
right.
wish I could see that. I'm so sorry I can't. If anybody can do it with a
So
mouse, that'd be
he's
great.
about to- Yeah, he's moving,
Thank you.
he's
There
moving.
you
No,
his
that's what I
finger.
just said, run a
Thank you.
straight line.
So you think, okay,
The dirt.
from what I understand, you don't think you need more at the north. Nope. It's just needing more.
In that corner.
We don't need any at the north.
You need
We just
more
are trying
here.
to figure out a way to get it.
So this doesn't create a choke point for you for the access, right? That's basically the.
Well, we have, if they close 600, we have no access.
I understood. But basically, if you drew a straight line from there down to there.
Right, but I understand you guys have your own plans, your own ideas, your own things that you need to do with your property, and I'm just.
What would be any future plans along that strip, Jason? It's storage yard now, right? All storage in that?
Yeah, I mean, this building right here is gonna have to get tore down, and this building's gonna have to get tore down. Just because they don't meet code any longer. And so, you know, a large shop is gonna have to get built somewhere in this general area.
Then the lines he's showing, it probably wouldn't get into that area.
We just have to lay it out, yeah.
Mark. I'm
But I
I'm just
deserve
looking at
my-
it from a site planning standpoint. I understand. I'm just looking at the hypothetical. You need this width here to get the
59
access
feet.
coming in, right?
Well, yeah, and it's the west side that makes it the driveway possible,
Right.
down at the bottom, not up at the top. There's.
So I mean,
Plenty of room,
is there a possibility that it could follow this proposed line here and then at some point down here
Sure,
kick out like that?
absolutely.
That'd be a pretty minimal impact for
It
Heber
could-
Power at that point. If it
They
was
could
kicked down
follow
at least.
they could follow the high pressure gas line. Just.
Yeah.
You could just jog out.
We just need to relay it out, to do 59 feet on this property line. And then come up here and dive into this area.
Wherever makes sense. for you.
And that probably wouldn't impact any future needs for Heber Light.
Yeah, having that 59-foot dimension, we can get this redrawn and get it around to people. So,
And that would still give access.
Into your yard.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
It'd
you're
be
not,
separate
you're not
access.
getting anywhere near that gate up there.
Yeah, literally, all I did is I just took the line, I called Enbridge, they have zero issue with us moving the fence line back. So I just went back to that, I just went back to where that 30-foot easement ended, so to the west with the fence, but like I say, this was gonna be a discussion, so.
So if those are two entrance points,
Mhm.
what does Heber require for separation?
Oh, you mean the Heber Light and Power Gate and the potential gate for them?
No. I mean, is there any?
Since
just
it's a
have-
minor road, Kevin, I don't know if there's any clearances there. These are limited access, if that makes sense.
Right.
So
Well,
it
you
would
could
be
even-
like a regular intersection clearance that we do require.
You'd even put the road there, and then when it got down in, turn and go into the yard that way and close that gate right there on 300. There's potential to not have two close entrances onto 300.
Right. This
we
entrance, excuse me if I'm wrong, please. The entrance Mark is talking about to go into the depot would not be for the public. If all these plans work out, the public would be going off of the whatever
Yeah.
new 600.
That's
west.
just to get into your backyard
Yeah.
for whatever.
Yeah, delivery.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's talk about another scenario, which probably to me is the most likely scenario.
Before you do that, would you need this now, or could you work out a deal with Heber Light that when they be anything permanent put on that, so that in the future, when you needed it, then you could.
So that's what I was gonna talk about. If 600 West never gets closed, we don't need that at all, ever. Is that gonna happen? Might happen next year, this Bulldog County Council you're a member of, you know, they might just push it right.
I
Just kidding. I'm
don't
just
count
kidding.
on it.
I'm just kidding. You know, that may be a long time in the future and may not happen at all. In the meantime, and you know, I don't know how you might write an agreement or come to some agreement that says, if that happens, then this option could be considered. But
Just keep it open for future.
But what I would like to do or consider now, this is the question you asked now, is about 6 to 8 feet in from the existing fence line. And if we had that, we would do a project next year.
That allowed you to widen that platform, throw down to 300 like you've talked about.
Okay,
It's only literally 6 to 8 feet.
But if you're gonna move the fence, it'd make sense to move it clear over to where you eventually
Well,
might be.
Depends on what you get.
To make sure I'm following everything. So
It makes sense.
if 600
And then it'd just be open land.
West is never
Maybe they have an agreement to keep it,
closed,
I think we should.
keep it
then you
clean.
don't need that
We don't need that
secondary
access.
access, okay?
It'd be Heber Light power. plant.
And you only need just the
Yeah.
If
6 feet or whatever you're saying to.
Yeah, and I don't want to show this plan and get into the
Yeah.
middle of things, but
Do you have that
No, his
picture?
idea was, I didn't bring that. His idea was you got 600 comes around like this.
Mark,
Field here and here and here.
Mark, can you be louder so Mayor can hear you?
Mark,
yeah.
no, I had a question when you're ready, everybody. Mark?
okay, go ahead, Heidi.
Oh, thank you. Mark Nelson, the 6 feet that you're mentioning right up front and the changing of the fence, wouldn't in the future that fence still need to be moved, you know, if and when changes would be made to 600 West? So would you really want to move the fence twice?
No, I wouldn't, but,
His concern
but
was
I'm
that.
here begging another organization for some of their precious land, so.
Which isn't unrealistic at this point. I think we need to do some more. I think, Jason, you need to do some more work on that. And redo that line along there to what Mark would like to do. And
Well, like I say, I mean, I think with the 6 or 8 feet right now, I'd say that, you know, when we do redo the fence, we just redo it at the boundary of that encumbered property. And then if this pipe dream of Lisco's happens,
you won't never need that.
well, and 600 West closes, then, you know, just have it etched out that 59 feet, just so that, you
Yeah,
know, you're not gonna build there, and that's where you're gonna pull like your setbacks for the building.
right, right.
So you're just in the future planning.
And maybe you'd have to have an agreement if the fence moved clear over to that potential future line.
Yeah, but
Maybe Heber Light, or maybe the train would need to keep that land clean and clear.
yeah,
Your platform's gonna extend down there if you get that additional 7 feet.
I talked to Enbridge Engineering, I think Monday. And, you know, they have zero issue with us moving that fence to the west side of their, easement.
Okay,
And they also don't have any issue with like pavement going over the top of their easement. They said that they'd have to really take a hard look at tracks, so.
But this would be tracks now because you're not
You're
crossing
not
300.
proposing any tracks within the easement?
Frozen tracks, right on the fence,
Yeah.
on the fence line, but nowhere near that.
On the
But
current,
outside of the required easement for it?
No.
Yeah, so this easement right now, so this is the fence line.
Right, okay.
Our easement, this easement is 15 feet this direction and 15 feet this direction. So right now, that entire easement is inside of our fence line, but you move to the west, and that frees up all this space that, you know, nobody can really do anything with other than, you know, maybe some asphalt or something like that
storage.
they can dig through if they need to get through.
How deep is that gas line? You know, 10 feet?
In a future scenario, that could be part of that road or.
Yeah.
A road would be fine, but in either scenario,
tracks.
there's no tracks, even within 15 feet of it,
Correct.
which is ideal.
so again,
I'll get
Mark,
it for so we'll send it around.
You want me to send you that?
Mark, you don't mind moving the fence twice because we've really got to protect the inventory in the southern campus, you know, from any kind of public access.
I think only move it once, determine where that might be in the future and move it.
Whatever.
It'd kind of be a no man's land until you bought it from Heber Valley Power.
Well, it's encumbered. It's really 30 feet of that is acreage.
Yeah, so you're really not talking that much.
Not with this here. I mean, you're talking whatever that is,
Yeah,
15, 20 feet in some areas and maybe 5 in another down towards the end down there.
maybe sell it to them now and then it's theirs. Move the fence.
Jason, does it, even though it's encumbered, does it appreciably, like if you move the fence, is there a lot of stuff that's being stored there right now that you now have to find a home
You
for?
can see what's being stored there. Like we put some K-rail on top of it and we've got some poles stored on top of it. As far as the easement goes.
But it doesn't like immediately, necessitate a whole nother shed or something to hold things.
Where it will bother us is in where we pile snow for snow removal. But that's, it's a solution we'll have to figure out.
In your yard there.
Are you picking up air, storage space like that with the removal of the building?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that?
Jason, can we use the detention basin for snow removal in the new building?
Yeah, probably. I mean,
I'm just wondering if it's big enough for snow removal that we could put there from the southern campus too.
I don't think it's.
You wouldn't want to take it from here and
necessary.
put it over to
Yeah.
there.
Jason, from a time point of view, if we wanted to do this, the project.
Well, it's gonna be
there.
there. One way or the other.
Year.
You could put it in there.
Fence contractor.
You could put it in there and if you enough, you could put a tube in there, I'll put top of it out in there, 600 west.
The train is full of
There you go. Up it in the.
Okay, does anybody else?
How do we progress on this, Jason?
Jason's gonna draw up some other lines and have us look at it.
Okay, I
Yeah.
do think the railroad's very interested in a lease to own so that it's not, paid all up front because they would want to put in the fence and do
Yeah.
the leasing, with the new fence. But what do you think, Mark Nelson?
Yep, that's what.
We could maybe look at that next month, have some more stuff available.
We'll keep paying our 400 amp services that we have.
Okay,
Okay.
thank
This
you.
residential that we were talking about.
You would have had to bought
But if
that.
you want to build a bigger,
Yeah, So if there's
I'm gonna go look up
not
the
any more
bill.
questions, then we'll proceed.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mark, for
I'm
coming.
gonna go-
See you.
Okay, now we'll move on to the review and approval of the wage study proposal pay ranges. Carly?
I don't know if I have anything to add beyond the supplemental information that was emailed out earlier. Discussion on that took place in audit committee as well. So unless you have any further questions beyond what's been presented.
Okay, no, so this is review and approval. Does this just mean we're approving that wage study, right? We're not gonna implement it?
Yeah,
Okay,
well, and I think as explained, if I understood it, this won't affect any
right.
salary
We're
in this
just,
year's budget. As
we're
you look
just
at
gonna-
next year's
right.
budget, who fits where it might affect it
Yeah.
some, correct?
yeah,
Well, it'll affect
Depending on where people fall into that.
anybody that's at max now and can't have a raise
Yeah.
could potentially have a raise
yeah.
when they come due.
With
for-
this, yeah,
Yeah.
with an increase,
If,
Yeah.
could potentially, I say, because if their range moves and they're already at max,
sure.
Right,
instead of Jason and Carly using their merit, which is not merit, what'd you call it? Sorry, the bonus pool. What'd you call it? Merit? Anyway, the thing that's outside of the range, it could end up being a range,
Yeah,
a salary adjustment instead.
which then you
Okay.
save the money in there.
so does somebody want to make a motion?
One second for clarity.
Okay,
Because I think we confused the question. If we approve,
we're just
This thing.
approving.
These proposed pay ranges.
I don't think so. It's review and approval of the wage study proposed pay ranges. So we are voting to change the ranges right now. That's
Well, it's
that's the motion. That's up.
proposed pay ranges by job, so it's exactly, we're approving this pay
I'm
range.
just clarifying, because
Yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
question you
The
asked.
green section in here,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Kevin, did you get enough info from kind of that, the weighted average thing that answered the question?
It gave me exactly what I was looking for. It just painted a picture as to kind of what the industry pay ranges have increased year over year.
mhm,
And if you applied that just to positions, not giving them specific raises, or whatever, how much have generally wages gone up? And there's 5.8, was it?
yeah,
That's
5.8%.
exactly what I was thinking. So we're
Okay.
not approving a 5.8
no,
wage increase.
no,
but more
we're
wage
approving
increase.
the study is what we're approving.
Well, we're approving the study and
And
the
the
range,
range.
the new ranges.
Yeah. Okay. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion that we approve the wage study proposed pay ranges.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve the rate study and ranges. Is there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, that is 5-0.
Thanks, staff, for the extra
Yes,
support.
and for helping us through
Understanding
this. Yeah. Okay, we will move on now to review and approval of reimbursement for future bonding financing resolution 2025-3. Bart, you're up.
This is just a simple procedural thing, whereas we're looking at potentially needing to borrow money late fall, early spring. Some of the costs we incur currently, if we don't have this resolution approved, we won't be able to reach back and pull these costs into our financing. And so this allows us to pull in any project costs that are incurred prior to the full financing. We put a $30 million limit on it. We hope to keep this financing below that, but 30 million gives us a pretty good
Oh, there it is.
headway.
This is meeting an IRS requirement.
Yeah,
It's a official action, formal action, something like that. An entity's required taken actions for borrowing or basically before you use bond proceeds to pay those costs. So that's all this does is check that box. If we never borrow any money, this is
Hopefully we
not
won't
what the
need to.
paper is written on.
Right.
And if it is, we're then allowed to catch those expenses going forward.
Chairman, I make a motion that we approval of reimbursement for future bond financing, resolution 2025-3.
Well, second.
Okay, I have a first by Kendall, second by Aaron, that we approve the resolution. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that passed 5-1, or 5-0.
Yep.
Okay, now, report on Lower Snake Creek penstock repair. Jake? I've
Yeah,
been
so-
waiting all night to hear from you. Yeah.
I'll be short.
We've been
Okay.
This little presentation, is to kind of give you an update, or actually, I guess, information. I'm sure how many of you have heard about this, what happened with the penstock and where we're at with it. This has a picture of the Lower Snake Creek plant. I will share so you know where we are talking about. Share a Google image. It comes up. You can't see it as good as I can. So that is the Snake Creek Canyon. I don't know how well you can read what's there. The lower plant is down in this area here. That's the Lower Snake Creek Power Plant. I drew this red line. It kind of is above where the penstock is, just so you can see where the routing of this pipeline is. This pipe was put in early 1900s. The plant was put on in 1909. And so this section, basically from right here where it turns, this little corner right here, it turns and goes straight downhill. That's considered the penstock, which is heavier gauge pipe. We consider this the flow line. This was originally wood stave pipe in the 1900s.
That's going west, right?
This is going west up the canyon.
Yeah.
And that wood stave pipe in the 1900s was replaced in the 70s and 80s with metal pipe we currently have, the 28-inch metal line. Runs up the canyon here to our upper Snake Creek plant, which was built in the 1940s. There's a diversion right here. This is our power plant right here. Water comes out of these canyons and mines and different things, collects here, and it goes into this pipe. So what happened? So 1st of March, we got a phone call from an individual who does water maintenance for the K&J subdivision below us, and we had a rock outcropping broke, and half of it slid down the hill and landed on our pipe. So I will go back to the picture quick.
So it's not buried, it's above ground.
What's that?
The pipe's above ground.
The pipe is not buried, other than so where I said it dropped it down off the hill.
Yeah.
It's kind of buried there. It gets down in the canyon, and then it's underground. But this is all above ground.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was originally put in the 1900s, so it was like, I don't know how they carved this route out of the side of the mountain, to be honest with you, but they did. It's very inaccessible. We only have 2 locations to access the pipe. Luckily, this location was one of them that we could access within about 500 feet. Next picture. So this picture is the greatest one. This is the rock that hit the pipe.
I can see.
You can see where the water's spraying out. That was the day we went up there. So the 1st of March, there was still about 4 feet of snow on the road going up into there to this access point. The access is actually just behind that pine tree. That's the outcropping that broke off. So there's still more to come. So we shut the plant down, drained the pipeline. That was 1st of March. I had to wait for it to melt for about 3 to 4 weeks before we could start our repairs. And once we were able to start, what's this picture? temperature changes. You can see, this was the major crack in the pipe that it caused right beyond the big rock. And then you can see the pipeline here. We had to build this road probably 300 feet to get to where we could access it with the welders. You can see where the pipe smashed because it hit. There's other rocks that came down with it, so it smashed the pipe several areas, split the caused cracks in other areas in the pipe before and after the rock. And so once we built the road, we brought in welding contractor. That's them on the left, cutting a piece of that pipe out to patch it. And so they made some patches on that. You can see the finished patch of where the rock was. We had to dig quite a bit of dirt out of the side of the mountain. Like I said, you can see the route of that. It's very small, and the pipe just lays there along the side of the mountain. We did have to bring in a helicopter. This joint on the right is a slip joint that's been there, since we took it over and back in 2011 or so. There's two of these. We repaired one of them in 2011-12. Is in location where the second access we have, we can actually get to with equipment trucks. This one was not, but while this process happened, this joint started leaking, and we had to fly the welder up there with the helicopter so that they could weld it. Load repairs have been made. We watered the pipe last week, and we actually ended up with 2 more small leaks after we repaired these leaks, due to the fact that when we water this pipe, where it lays on the ground, it actually moves once the weight's out of it, because the mountain is pushing it. So that's always an issue. We don't dewater the pipe unless it's a major issue, maintenance type of item. We haven't drained it in probably 6-7 years until this year. So now we're going to.
So which way does it move, downhill?
Goes downhill. Comes from the upper plant, goes down to the lower.
No, when it moves, when you dewater it, it slides back downhill?
Well, the weight and the temperature will move it. With the water, when it goes out of there, the whole mountain is pushing on that pipe. And so when we dewater it, it moves a half an inch.
Downhill.
You can actually see where
Yeah.
it moves. So we're waiting for it. We've got some industrial splices that we found that rather than, and they're small leaks, they're not major breaks. So we're going to use these industrial, it's an industrial pipe leak repair wrap that we found. And we're going to put those on hopefully tomorrow. And then we'll water the pipe probably Friday, finish Monday. It takes 2 days. It has to be pretty slow. So hopefully once that happens, with the flex of it being dewatered again, we don't have any other small leaks, and we'll be able to get the power pump back on.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Any questions on that?
I didn't even know
Have you
that
been able to
pipeline
do-
was there.
Have you been able to do any
I
other
used to run
maintenance
that
or whatnot while that power plant's been
You
down?
did?
No, we haven't had anything on the agenda in that plant for maintenance. So we have done some things on the pipeline that was down, like that joint was not part of this. So we did that while we were there. And we've done some repairs on some breathers on the pipe. There's little breathers all the way down because it's not level.
Yeah.
So it gets air bubbles in it. So we've done a lot of maintenance on changing some of the breathers that were broke. Just different things like that we could do when we were up there. So.
Cool.
Hey. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions
for me.
for?
Thank you for all that work.
Yeah,
How long is that downhill slope on the penstock?
It's about 1.84 miles from where it goes into
That
the
built
pipe.
up pretty good pressure then, doesn't it? Coming
Well,
down.
so
It says it's about 1.84.
You're right, it doesn't feel the pressure. So the pressure in this low line, which the flat part's about 12 PSI. It's not a lot. It's not a lot. It'll then gain, 320 feet.
And how to turn your turbine.
320 feet
Yeah.
on that one. So not the upper plant's actually 700 PSI. So
Good thing they put that in when they put it in.
Yeah.
On the farmers, that's how they got it in.
it was the miners that put it
Miners.
in. It was the miners that put it out.
Very cool.
Probably were the same ones that ran that Ontario thing down the straight as it went through that
It
mountain.
was Jesse Knight, so it was in the same group.
Yeah.
If you do research on it,
That's insane. That I'm turning quite the
You've been in there?
I guess you can see the light from one all the way to the end if you're.
Well, yeah, first time we went well, he stopped, but they stopped. We see that light down there, you see a little pinpoint, and he said, when we get there, we're halfway in. And I thought, there's not much of a bend in that, or you would never see that. It's straight and narrow out of there. How they did that in the 1900s, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, now we'll move on to the discussion on UAMPS all requirement project memo. Jason.
Okay, I'll cover this quick. UAMPS is diligently trying to put together an all requirements project. Just so the board fully understands, UAMPS has always been project based. They're not all requirements. The other joint action agency in the state, UMPA, which Provo, Spanish Fork, Nephi, Levan, several other smaller municipals belong to, they are all requirements, meaning UMPA, as a board of, that is represented by those communities, but UMPA makes all the decisions on, how they're going to meet their resource need. So those, like Provo doesn't belong to a particular project. It's all together, and they all go in and decide which projects are going to belong to. You have
So they don't go in and ask for a certain number of
so
kilowatts or amps out of it.
So UMPA goes to their board and says, okay, we want to, have the West Valley Gas project, which they have. It's not that Spanish Fork can say, well, I don't want a part of that. It's too expensive of a gas project for me.
So they go in,
don't
those affiliate groups go in as one group.
It goes in UMPA, it's all requirements. It's just one group. That board for UMPA decides we're going to buy the West Valley Gas project, and that becomes part of their portfolio.
For all of their members.
UAMPS is completely different. Those of you that were here for the nuclear project back in the day, we belonged to it. But then an off-ramp hit and we exited. There was a lot of UAMPS members that stayed in that project, but had that project got built, we wouldn't have been a part of that project. We wouldn't have had any energy out of that project. With the energy day ahead market and some various other things that are happening on the markets level, the transmission level, there's a lot of UAMPS members that are asking for, UAMPS to take a hard look at creating an all requirements project so that, they don't necessarily have to worry about power supply. They'll just let the joint action agency do it. And that's what this memo is about. It's literally just kind of explaining how UAMPS wants to go about setting up this all requirements project. So the first thing is this memo that they sent out in May. They actually went over this memo. Mayor Franco was at the meeting where they went over this memo down at the workshop in St. George. And that's the first time we've seen it. And since that time, there's been a few other meetings on this particular project that they're trying to create. So the first thing is, they sent this memo out. Next, they're going to do a selection of all requirement project-based specific project parameters. The memo explains that step a little bit. I don't think it explains it very well. They still don't have all the answers as far as that goes.
But basically, does that mean they'll select the projects that are going to be inside of this,
Yes.
this umbrella or
Yeah.
whatever?
Yeah, and probably subscribe to members that want to be a part of this project. They did send out a survey. Staff here, Emily and I sat down and filled out their survey. And just so the board knows, I also went down and met with Mason, the CEO of UAMPS, one-on-one on this particular project that their unit developed. So, you know, kind of in that July, August timeframe is when development of this all requirements project will start to get passed around in the form of an agreement. And anybody that wants to join the all requirements project, that would come to this governing board if you know, this board is interested in joining this project.
Is it fair to say that an all requirements project is most beneficial to an entity that doesn't have other options readily available? So it doesn't have self-generation options available, doesn't have professional buying power and hedging bets and hedging gas and things. The benefit seems to be those that are less sophisticated. Seems like a bad connotation, but actually less sophisticated in their methodology, right?
You're small enough for not wanting to have the staff that's necessary to you know, kind of handle this. And there is a lot of UAMPS members that, yeah, they, you know, they decide to join one of these gas projects that we joined. And, you know, they go to their governing bodies, they get approval for it for the 2 megawatts they want out of that project, and continue to go to the project committee meetings and everything else. But they don't, that's the end. I mean, that is, they let UAMPS do everything else for them. Whereas we don't, you know, we do our own scheduling, we do our own risk management, that type of stuff.
So if that's the case, is it likely, do you think, that having a bigger member like us in a project like this would serve, well, first of all, it would serve UAMPS to make it easier for them to find something big because they've got one big anchor point, right? But is it more likely that we would get less of the benefit than the smaller entities that might join something like this? And the reason I'm asking is, if I remember correctly, we are either the biggest or among the biggest. I probably should know that answer, of UAMPS, right?
No, not even close.
Okay.
We're kind of in the middle. So we're about a 60 megawatt peaker this year. City of St. George will peak at probably about 160. Okay. You got Murray down there that's pretty flat, but we'll peak at around 100 megawatts. You've got Bountiful at about 80, 90 megawatts, Logan at 100 megawatts.
But if you had to drop a big versus little line, we're on the big side.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And we're also like one of the founders of UAMPS. We're one of the few that were there from the very beginning. So with that, they're kind of proposing these organizational type models. One is, just make the whole JAA 100% all requirements. Meaning, if you want to belong to UAMPS, then it would be 100% all requirements. That's not going to happen. I don't see how they can even make that happen, quite honestly. Based on the way the agreements are set up.
Well, we've got some of our own projects that we've done separate from UAMPS, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I think that's a lift that probably isn't going to happen. They just show it here because, that is an option, I guess, with the board and all of the different city councils and power boards and everything else associated with UAMPS decided that's the way they wanted to go, then that could get done. Next would be partial requirements. A certain percentage of members' power supply need is covered by the JAA, remaining is covered by the member. That's probably more or less the direction that they're gonna go with this. And then the next is project-based, member not required to procure any resources from JAA. That's the current model. And there is some failings to the current model too. You know, the current model does require some entities that may not be doing it to make sure that they're resource adequate. You know, that there are members out there that really don't worry about it and, you know, just let UAMPS procure their, you know, tell them, okay, you're, you know, 5 megawatts short going into this summer, you need to buy a market purchase. And you just let UAMPS do that for them. So, and then there's project-based plus all requirements, and this could be the other way they end up going, and that's where, you know, some members participate in the all requirements while other members just stay project-based.
Is that the likely scenario that worked best for us, or the upper one?
Yeah, you know, I don't have, like, literally, I mean, I had this memo, and that's all I've got to work on right now, plus some, like, discussions with,
We'll meet and talk it through.
you know, Mason and some other UAMP staff members. So there's a lot of questions as to how this would ultimately work. But this is kind of what they're looking at for anybody that wants to join the all requirements project. And that is, you could join in 3 different levels: a light level, which is very little difference. You know, you consider the light level being kind of what we have today at UAMPS, with the pool project being all requirements and the pool project having the authority to make sure that the pool project is covered with resources. The pool project right now doesn't have the authority to, you know, build a project to make sure that the pool project is covered resource-wise. It can make day ahead and intraday type purchases to make sure that they balance within the balancing authority. But that's pretty much the limitations of the pool project. You know, if we do a power hedge for long-term power, say like a 5-year hedge for power on the market, we do that through the firm project right now. You know, medium is more of, okay, you keep your projects that you got right now and you continue the status quo with the projects that you are participating in, but you go into the all requirements project for all your additional resources.
So that would mean we couldn't, if another new project come along that looked good for us, we couldn't go into it if we chose the medium.
No.
We'd have to
All
do
the
it through
rest
the
all the rest of your loads would be covered by the all requirements project.
So it's almost like a 50-year phase in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then heavy would be, you literally go into the all requirements project with all of your resources, and then you're just in the all requirements. And I think it's important to know, because we have made some serious capital investments over my time here and well before my time here. All of those projects would be in the all requirements. So hydro projects that you just seen from Jake, they would then be UAMPS. You would literally designate.
They might be providing power for Logan.
Yeah.
If Logan went into it.
Yeah. And same with, you know, the Jordanelle that we helped develop with Central, the Lake Creek project. And then, you know, our gas peaking would all be would all be in that all requirements project and controlled by UAMPS. So
That's
so
a
they
blue
could-
and a heavy or medium.
That'd be the heavy.
So they could, if that was the case, they could decide to run the gas generator all the time.
Yep. Yep, they could just
Doesn't
say,
seem like-
okay, you know, you guys have these units, we're gonna run them every day, all day long, but then, you know, when they broke, they'd have to fix them too, so. So yeah, I just wanted to get it in front of you, you know, just begin the conversation. It's gonna continue on through the whole summer. Eventually, I'm guessing they will develop this project. And, you know, they'll be coming to, you know, a board meeting and seeing if this board wants to participate in, that all requirements project.
Do you think there's July, August timeframe is actually realistic?
No.
Just checking.
So we're probably really looking at spring next year.
I think it's gonna happen this year, just because of this energy day ahead market stuff that we're having to deal with. It's gonna go live in March, or, yeah, I think May of 2026. So
They'll need this in place before then.
I think they want to get an all requirements project in place. I think there's some members that are putting some pretty good pressure on them to get this in place before that kind of timeline.
Is that because they feel there's uncertainty in the future market, that this would give them more security or certainty?
Well, this is gonna happen no matter what with the energy day ahead market, the pooling. So the pool project or the UAMPS power pool, that agreement is gonna have to change. They do not have the flexibility within that agreement with all members to make what they need to do in the energy day ahead market with the California system operator, independent system operator, and the Pacific Core Balancing Authority in Utah to do what they need to do for the pool. So the pooling agreement's gonna have to change. That's gonna come back to this body with the modifications that is required in that agreement to make this energy day ahead market stuff work. And there's gonna be a lot more onus and, you know, responsibility that comes down to the individual member for that. Forecasting, you know, we already do forecasting. And,
Thank you.
you know, you've got to submit those forecasts. You've got to make sure that you've got the resource to meet your load going into the day. There's, you know, resource adequacy requirements to go along with that. You can't just use the pool to save you because you forgot to make that buy going into that next day. You know, you can't go in 15 megawatts short if you're a big entity. You can't go in 30 megawatts short, which I know entities are doing right now to UAMPS. So
Jason,
we don't, but other entities do. Yeah.
Jason, that was exactly my question at the bottom of page 8, where it says we have to meet the procurement compliance of EDAMs. So now that totally makes sense. And we can already meet the procurement compliance of EDAMs because we do the forecasting right at the bottom of page 8 in the last paragraph.
Yeah, we have, you know, Emily's group does a good job forecasting our load for the next day. You know, we actually operated for years when UAMPS was giving us the correct information to balance our load at plus or minus 5% every hour. And we have good data to prove that. We have, you know, some really good tools in place in which we can manage our load, you know, with the peaking plant. You've got, you know, if your load does spike up unexpectedly, you know, you can fire up some more generation, buy some intraday gas, and just decrease your load so that you're still meeting your resource adequacy requirements. So,
Okay.
not anything I'm super worried about. What I'm worried about is if we're going to get the correct information back from UAMPS so that we can fit those schedules. Because right now we're currently not. Like they're not giving us the adequate information we need and the tools we need to meet that requirement. Although we do have, you know, going into this summer, we've got, you know, the power hedges in place, the market purchases bought, to where, you know, we're only relying on, you know, the plant and, you know, our loads to meet that requirement for just the very top of the daily load schedule. So, you know, I plan on in June coming and doing, you know, spending some more time on how we're actually going to go about doing that. You know, bringing to the board, you know, kind of the value, how we go about striking units and, you know, what costs are covered when we do strike a unit. Because, you know, we don't strike a unit unless the market condition is right to strike a unit. So every hour that engine runs, it is paying itself for its operation and maintenance costs and its major overhaul accrual against the cost of market. So, you know, that unit, if it runs for an hour, it's making $20 back so that it's paying for its all-in cost. And if market is cheaper than that, then we just buy market. If market is more than that, then we run the machine. And so, and that's how the machines, you know, bring value, is it gives you that hedge against the market, you know, and the parameters of that are set and are cost based. And so, you know, I've heard people say, you know, well, you know, your O&M costs are super high this year. Well, that's probably because you ran the units a lot last year, and so the wear and tear on them. But for every hour they run, they're paying that O&M. So, you know, it might be hard to nail that budget number because you don't know how many hours those units are going to run every year. But you just need to know that if that budget is out of whack, it's because you're running the units more. And so you're having to maintain them more, and vice versa. So, and I've seen it go both ways. You know, I've been here where, you know, aren't you maintaining your units? You're not spending your O&M budget. And it's because we're not running them because the market prices are so low. So, it's just right now we're in a horrible maintenance cycle, and and there's some various reasons for that, and I want to come back to the board for that. I mean, we had to move some units out of a plant that was condemned, and can't capitalize those costs. They'll just go into O&M because all you're doing is moving a unit from one spot to another. And that's really put a lot of pressure on those O&M budgets the last 2 years. So anyways, that's the report on the audit requirements. And I'm happy to entertain some more questions on it.
So Jason, just to summarize my understanding of this proposal, if we were to do an all requirement agreement with UAMPS, we would turn over all of our assets to them, all of our rates to them, and they would.
Not our rates.
They would set rates, so.
No, they would set a wholesale power cost budget in that all requirements. And let's say that they set an all requirements cost of $70 a megawatt hour. Then
Okay,
we would take that and we would set our rates based on what their budgeted all requirements cost is.
okay,
Which is very similar to what we do now. Other than now, we have all these projects that cost different amounts.
yes,
And we come to our own wholesale power cost number. And that's what we set our rates to. So, but yeah, all of our generation assets would be turned over into that all requirements. That would be Hunter, IPP, our federal power allotment, Jordanelle, all of our portfolio would just get turned over to them. And then any decisions on what type of resource was bought next would not come back to this body. It would just be handled at the joint action agency level. And what would come back to this body is what that ultimate number costs. So, but, you know, if UAMPS decided, okay, you know, we want to go big into this nuclear project, and you're in that all requirements, and you, for whatever reason, don't feel comfortable with nuclear, you wouldn't have that autonomy anymore.
Yeah.
That would be made at the joint action agency level. So it's a totally different way of going about the wholesale power business for sure.
okay, okay. And so if they give us a cost per hour, that means we could still decide about dividends ourselves because we ultimately decide our own rates. But do we do our own rate study still?
Yes, everything at the distribution level would still be up to this body. So, you know, maintaining the distribution system, adding the new load growth to it, would all be still done by this body. So. All that they would take is the generation and the transmission costs into that all requirements. So, but not building new transmission, that's excluded. They don't want to come here and try to get a conditional use permit to build that new transmission line, that new substation you have to build. So.
Let me have all your toys.
Okay, if there's no more questions,
yeah.
let's move on to review of the capital plan.
Okay. So I know we're running up against time here too. So I just want to go through the capital plan as where it sits right now. It is not finalized yet. We're still trying to get some numbers together, but we'll just go through and review some of the projects. We still have the new office building going on. We still have the generation fire suppression system that is still in the capital plan. We've got the college substation, that zero-scaping that needs to happen on that berm. That's still in the capital plan. And we need to, that's one of the questions I had for this, for especially the Heber City people. Mayor, you had said that we got to do some further beautification on that college substation up there, like a
On the east side, east and probably south side, everyone, the reason I'm asking that to have you consider it is because of the art center, the amphitheater, and the Monuments of the Americas art district that will be going in across to the east, up the foothill, and also a little bit, I think, to the north of our current college substation. And I would hope that we could do whatever we can to kind of block the substation view given the views that are being promoted with those arts places.
Mayor, do you know how close those things are? The context of my question is this a necessity to think about now, or is it a necessity we can think about later? If it's close, then getting back in there might be more expensive once stuff's built out. If it's not close, then
I
maybe.
agree. I agree. I don't know the timing of it. And Aaron, when you give the speech,
Yeah, I'll look tomorrow.
you kind of check and see what you think about beautification needs for blocking or screening the college substation. That'll probably help us the most right now.
What
And then
about,
find out about when the Monuments of America's build out schedule is also, please.
Will do.
what about the available for paying part of that cost for a beautify for a plant that was there before they ever came in?
I'm not sure, Kendall. I'm just saying that let's consider it and see what the needs are. I don't know for sure.
I don't know that the monuments people. Well,
Probably don't have
to
the
your
money
point,
to do
I
it.
don't know that they're thinking that way as far as a normal.
Yeah, I
developer.
agree.
It is a development of some sort, but
The only thing we
it
do
appears
is
to
put
me
a taller
like they're
fence
thinking of the
over
works.
The what?
The only thing we do is put up a taller fence on any property besides the fence line. And
That's more scrub up.
gonna have to be very tall, because everything's above.
Yeah, I think what the mayor and I talked about was doing a block wall on those sides to,
Is it a risk? If there's more people up there, right, coming up there, is it a risk to have more people know where that is? I know there was like some worry about just generally people knowing where substations are.
there is,
Right.
yeah, I mean, anytime you have a substation with, more density around it, it's just cameras, we gotta watch closer and that type of stuff, so make sure you don't have anybody violating that perimeter.
I'll take some photos from a couple of different spots and share them back to the board. I'll be up there tomorrow.
Thank you.
That's one, the phase two, of the campus modifications. We discussed that a little bit today with the train. Some of that cost is tearing buildings down, and establishing a new warehouse laydown yard type configuration of that campus. New communication building that would be located currently our DMARC for our comm is, and it affects Heber City, it affects Wasatch County, it affects multiple entities, but it's in that gas plant one that is going to get torn down
On the campus.
Yeah, and so we've had that discussion. We've had discussions with all the stakeholders on that, but once that building comes down, a new comms building needs to be built in that general location.
I think it fine. We talk about these beautifying whatever the station. Every time I commented to you on this before, we talked so much about the new substation down there, whether we put a wall around it or a dirt berm, which we chose to put a berm. It's just as high above the ground as it would be either way. You get used to it, it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some other minor ones here as far as buildings go. But the next big one is fleet maintenance configuration in our capital plan. We've got to configure 2 of our shop bays so that they are able to handle internal fleet maintenance. And then new office building phase 3. That's phase 3 of the site. That's another big ticket item that's in the capital plan.
Jason, is that for new staff that would happen with growth?
No, it'd just be the next phase. We've actually got phase one, the new office building and developing that north portion where that building's being built. Then there's phase two where we tear down some buildings and reconfigure the warehouse. And then the phase three would be replacing at least one of those buildings that we got to tear down. It'd be more of just kind of equipment shop that will be needed.
So you'll reconfigure the current warehouse once you moved out of there.
Yeah.
Do we have to tear it down just if it doesn't meet code, or just we have to get past code to do any kind of remodeling or anything? If it's there already and it doesn't meet code, can't it just stay? I asked that.
There's
Knowing I have. If it modifies it all, we have to get it re-inspected and it has to go out to code, but
So
can't it just stay?
So there's two buildings that just need to be torn down because they basically, when we did the facility study prior to the decision the board made to go ahead with the office building, within that assessment, gas plant one and the cold storage were basically condemned by the engineer. Like, you need to tear these buildings down. They're at the end of their useful life. And we can go into that reasoning. It's a pretty long list. And then the current shop that is where the guys are, with the new campus and the way it lines out, it's kind of in an odd spot. And we kind of need that area to redefine the warehouse. But along with that, there's a lot of improvements that need to be made on that building in order for it to continue to be of use to us. And as soon as we go down that path, the experts have told us that it's better to just tear it down and start over because that's cheaper than doing something else with that building. So, and that's stuff we can all look at as we go further along in this capital plan. It's laid in the capital plan because that's been the recommendation going forward. So,
Jason, Heidi, I'm sorry, but I do have to leave.
Okay,
So,
you pick a chair, Brenda.
Kevin, will you finish the meeting out?
Sure.
Okay, Kevin
Thank
will
you.
finish the meeting out. Thank
Thank
you. Thanks, everybody.
The next portions, most of these live on the capital plan, just ongoing. They're just capital we have to continually invest in some of these projects. Next big ticket unit overhauls are in the capital plan. The plant 2 relay upgrades is in the capital plan. That's a project that we'll be doing next, starting at the end of this year, completing next year. The new generation battery and engine is still in the capital plan. I know I discussed with you the battery that's up there. Those talks are still continuing, as well as, they've even asked us to begin to do some due diligence on their next generation of battery as far as doing a test on that. So we haven't removed that from the capital plan yet. But it's something that we can do. I don't want to yet because it is 100% impact fee related and we're still working down that path. It may kick out a couple more years, but it's still in there. And then the big one, the plant 1 replacement. So we tear down plant 1. We go and build a new facility to replace that. and fully loaded. We got that in the capital plan at 38 million. And I'll go into that a little bit more. But that's something we can definitely scale down as we go forward. But once again, that's 100% impact fee related item as well. So just everybody's got to keep in mind that as we shrink our capital plan, the less we'll get out of impact fees. Some of these things are just always in there. As you review this document. And there are some other pretty big ticket items in here that are 100% impact fee related. You know, the jailhouse tap transmission line and south extension, you know, that's a big project. As well as some big reconductor type projects on the distribution system.
Do we have the potential new plant out on South 40 in here yet?
Yep, right here, Southfield.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
Southfield substation is in there. And then we've got Midway substation high side rebuild at 5.4 million. And then we've got the North Dam POD substation at 15 million and the Daniels Canyon substation at 15 million.
Where are those at?
So the property we bought out on 40. and
That's what I
Daniels
meant,
Canyon.
South 40.
Yeah. So that's the Daniel Canyon substation.
What's the one up there?
And you guys can name these whatever you want. This is just what we came up with.
It's a placeholder for now. Where's North Dam?
So that's where we're trying to work with Momentum Group up on Highway 32 to
Okay.
serve that whole
North
Jordan
Dam.
L. Ridge
What was
development.
the other one then up there that was 38?
That's the Southfield substation. A lot of that's already been spent,
Okay, I'm with you.
but there's still some that's going to be included in the impact fee study.
So Jason, you and I had talked about that North Dam point of delivery substation. And before I thought you had told me that only Jordan L. Ridge would use it. And if they are the only one using it, then I think, yes, it should be all impact fee eligible. But to me, it's a kayak project if it's only them that are using it. So I don't know if you want to elaborate further on that, but it's a big ticket item that I hope we don't have to bond for if it can be kayak instead.
Well, I wish it could, but it's not in any of the development agreements when you receive that annexation. So
Remember when I sent you the development agreement that part of the MDA said that when they work with any other agencies for infrastructure needs, they have to follow the policies from the other agencies. So, I'm looking at our policies. I'm just saying if it's only Jordan L. Ridge Momentum that would use that point of delivery substation, then I think that puts it in a different category than other substations that are used, in wide areas. Because,
not how the electric system works though, because once we build that substation and have it tied to college substation, then we could ultimately end up feeding North Heber with it on any given day. So.
Well, then that would be a percentage of it. So maybe we need to look at it that way as far as what percentage could be kayak and what percentage could go to Heber City generally.
Adam, you can weigh in here, but I know the way we operate here, a line extension is not a substation. And line extensions are kayak. And a substation is for the whole system.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a very situation specific type analysis. At the end of the day, what we're talking about is an exaction. Whether we call it an impact fee or whether we say you have to donate property, whether it's electrical system stuff, whether it's city parks. And you run up against constitutional limits on those exactions. And, we can certainly work to make our pencils as sharp as possible when it comes up, and I think that's a reasonable thing to do. But to just say, we're not going to be able to just say, you're paying for all the substation and you're paying full rate on impact fees.
I understand. I just didn't know that there would be, if it's the whole system for N1 capacity and so forth, let's try to, like you say, Adam, sharpen the pencils and see if there's any way we can break that down legitimately.
This is another area Heber City's got to start considering on as they keep allowing expansion.
Yes.
Well, my question was going to be, Jason, is there a best practice, or Adam, is there a best practice that all of our representative agencies should be, these different cities should be thinking about whenever there's developments? Is there wording that needs to be in development agreements to make sure that kayak is applicable? I mean, it doesn't do us any good to look backward and say we didn't do it. It does us a lot of good to say, what do we do differently in the future?
If you can.
Yeah, I mean, the hard line, and it might be some of a fuzzy hard line, is this constitutionality of this action. Up to that point, there's obviously some interpretation, some argument. As far as development agreements go, I'm not sure that it's so much the language in the agreement. That same constitutional analysis would apply. Even if the developer agreed to pay for everything in the kitchen sink because the city said you have to do this, that doesn't override the constitutional protections that exist.
So even
on unnecessary exactions.
Okay, so even Jordan Ridge agreement said something specific.
Yeah,
there's something more we have to do to be constitutionally okay.
Yeah, and so this general concept of exaction, right? You have to give us this, so we'll let you build this. Let's talk a new neighborhood in a city park. That's a simple one that at least I can wrap my head around, right? You give us 3 acres, we build a park. That way we'll permit your subdivision to go up. Sure. That's an exaction. The government entity or the land use authority in this case has the big stick, right? You could say, build us a new fire station, let you put in your subdivision. Or build a new mayor's residence. You could make all kinds of things. There's still exactions, still subject to constitutional limits. We take that basic concept underlies impact fees. So an impact fee is an exaction. It's just a complicated mess, the easiest way to put it. But instead of saying to this subdivision, you have to put in this park, this many acres, by such and such date, with an impact fee, we distill that concept down to a square feet per residential unit or dollars per residential unit, and you pay the park's impact fee, and the city makes that happen. Same basic concept. You do potentially run into trouble if you have an impact fee and are putting other exactions on top of that. You could effectively be double dipping.
So my question was, is there anything we, as for Midway, for Heber, or for, is there anything we need to be doing differently when we talk to developers? Because they're going to keep
I think
talking to all of the people.
I think the biggest thing, and this is maybe not impact fee or kayak specific, is just coordinating. Make sure that Heber Power gets input from the beginning, because we're obligated to serve. Sure. Whatever gets annexed, whatever gets permitted. We're in a position where, okay, we did this, now you make it work. Do better otherwise.
Yeah. Isn't there greater flexibility though, or discretion on annexations, because that's a legislative decision versus a development agreement?
Yeah, from the city side, sure.
From the city.
But the way Heber Power is situated, if Heber or Midway or Charleston annex property into city limits, we have the obligation to serve whatever gets built there. Obviously, if someone is building, let's say someone builds a data center, they're gonna cover a lot of those costs. It may take an enormous amount of money to make that work, but we still have that obligation to serve them.
Yeah.
Because we're not, they don't get it anywhere else.
If we, so thinking through that then, so hypothetical, let's say we go 20 years backwards and Heber Power can be at the table talking about Jordan Hill Ridge or something like that. What would Heber Power be saying other than, hey, if you build that, we're going to have to build a substation? And if that's all they can say, then what would we do differently? Again, my question is still, what should we do differently going forward? Because if it's just communicated up front, it gets into a capital plan like this, but it doesn't actually make the costs go away or
It
get
doesn't
shared.
make the cost go away, and that's true, at least for the most part.
Yeah.
It would solve problems like, okay, we need to put a substation in. Where's it gonna go?
Carving out a section of the land.
Being more involved up front, at least potentially helps us not play catch up. We're trying to figure out how to cobble something together to.
That's
serve
basically
people.
what the county's telling Sittler with the Highland right now. You put that in, you're gonna require a substation to service you. So plan for that.
Where are you going to put it? Yeah, got it.
And,
Well, it's substations and its transmission lines, because that's the polarizing thing. It's not, you build a substation, take up a couple acres of ground. It's that transmission line that's polarizing. And, the transmission, I think the kayak is the millions and millions of dollars these developers are putting in infrastructure wise and then turning over to us. I mean, that momentum up there is it's $1 million check after $1 million check of infrastructure that's going in, and then we own it when we energize it. And, that's all paid for by them. And what would be helpful is the developer we've been met with today, what was his name?
Ryan,
Heritage Farms. So he comes in and meets with us today, and he is blown away at what the line extension is gonna do to his project. We're talking millions of dollars to get that line extended to that area. And I think he was a little bit upset that he couldn't just ask Rocky Mountain Power to serve him. But once that annexation happens, we have the obligation to serve them, and Rocky Mountain Power is off the hook. So
not only off the hook, but it is now out of their service.
Well, they would require the same thing of him.
Wouldn't they?
He's not recognizing that, is he?
Wouldn't they
Well,
charge?
no, because they've got infrastructure right there.
Oh,
Gotcha.
They've got infrastructure right there, a substation right there. And it's just right off the corner of his property. And now he's looking at doing a line extension all the way up Highway 40 to that property.
where we should that one over there?
Right on the corner of 32 and
On the east corner?
on the west corner.
southwest.
Oh,
So
the
it's
Harvest Village.
Harvest
Okay,
Village.
all
You said
right.
Heritage Farms, I was like.
Yeah,
Harvest
That's
Village.
what Harvest
They
Village.
sound like-
Harvest Village.
Well, I happened to
Wait a
know
minute.
that.
Jason, just point of information there. So that was the Harvest Village developers that came in and thought that they would be hooking onto Rocky Mountain Power.
Yep. Mhm.
And they hadn't come to you before.
No,
Somebody didn't do their due diligence.
Wow.
no, they were a little shocked that they were gonna need to do that line extension all the way from College Sub to that property.
Oh, that's a biggie. But there's
Just
going to
had
be,
it,
no wonder the other developers haven't done it in between. Do we do the
just add
pro?
another pit in there.
Say it again, Kendall.
Just add another pit out there.
I wasn't going to suggest that, but I'm saying, do we prorate the
Don't
line
laugh too much.
extension when other developers
Oh,
latch onto it? Come
3
in
years. 3 years.
3 years? Okay, that's interesting. Thank you.
that could be parking in front of
So can I ask some other questions too, Jason, or do you want to keep presenting?
It's up to you, Mayor.
Well, why don't you finish explaining the whole thing? Because I don't think you're to the bottom yet.
No, most of these are pretty simple. Annual IT, OT upgrades, smart grid investment. And then we got some AMI towers that we're gonna have to put in to serve the North Village. So,
Hey, how tall will be those towers, please?
about 100 feet.
Tall, really?
Yeah.
Jason, that's obviously something that we need to address. We're putting in a cell phone tower amendment that could likely come to the city council next week. Do you have an exception right now in city code that you can put those in residential areas, or where were you considering them, please?
I'd have to bring that back to you next month. It's in a couple areas where we're trying to piggyback with JSSD on some water tanks and some facilities that they have, so that we're kind of in that utility zone.
But 100-foot tower, would any of them need to be in the residential, or would they be down next to the highway, do you think?
Oh no, they're gonna be right up there where we can get line of sight into those canyons. They're not gonna be popular at all.
Well, that's why I'm saying I would really appreciate it if you would contact Jamie Barron at the city and tell him your need for the AMI towers and any locations you can tell him, because I feel like that could be obviously a controversy for wealthy people that want to live up there in the wild, so to speak, and not have big towers next to them. And especially there was a residential code for cell phone towers to only be 35 feet in residential areas, and you say 100 feet. I'm just saying that could be a problem for this board and your needs. And I would suggest you contact him as soon as possible on that.
Yeah, Jake just gave me the thumbs up. He'll get with him on those locations.
Okay, that would be fantastic, because that might need to be put into that code amendment that's coming at us for cell phone towers. And it's going to be a big controversy. And I think we've got to get yours put in there, because otherwise you could be limited in residential areas.
Well, the shorter the tower, the more of them there are. So
I understand, but you can see where I'm coming from. I hope.
At the meeting.
Get him in the air so that he can area.
I'll come talk. I
Okay.
come into those meetings. Oh no, he's here.
We love it.
Okay, keep going. Thank you.
So next is kind of tooling, just, the more expensive tools get capitalized, and then the annual vehicle program is also in the capital plan. So as of right now, total capital is at 188,000. Impact fee related is at 188 million, and the impact fee related is at 134 million.
And that's over
10 years.
10 years.
And we'll look at 6 for the impact fee study. And once we get all the dates kind of finalized and make sure we got every project included, I'll bring it back to the board as far as what we're going to submit for the impact fee study. I just wanted to get in front of you in case you had any questions you can do with this on.
Any other questions?
I have questions, please. Jason, how much of this capital facilities plan is N1 related?
Pretty much all of the substations and also all of the reconductor projects. So I don't have a dollar value. I'd have to break that out, but whenever we look at reconductoring and also adding a substation, then we also do the analysis on what benefit we get from him to be able to back up other circuits.
Okay, I appreciate that. Next question is, I can see that the highest costs are over the next 5 years, which obviously would fit into the impact fee study. But then after that, the costs dramatically decrease. Can you tell me why the costs dramatically decrease at that point? Or do you think that as we get closer to the 6th and 7th and 8th and 9th years, that then those costs could increase? Tell me what you're thinking there.
I would expect that other things will be added on as we go further out. That'll do what?
Because we're going into an impact fee study, and I don't know the exact timing of these, so I'm trying to build as much into
Sure.
the
Okay.
first 6 years as we can, so that we're recouping those costs. I have no doubt that some of those projects will kick out further.
Okay.
But if growth, it could increase and make these projects move up the ladder as much as it could kick them out. So, right now, not to put anybody else on the spot, but it's like, the impact fee study is for 6 years, and these are real projects that are going to happen if this growth hits us. So.
Okay. Next question, please. I was looking at the financial statements that shows a current $93 million capital facility plan. Now we're going to the $188 million capital facility plan for, 9 years. But the $134 million is impact fee eligible. That leaves $54 million that I believe would be self-pay. And that means that even if we were to split up that $54 million, over 6 years, over 10 years, whatever it is, I just don't know if our budget can handle that amount of self-pay and continue our reserve policy at the same time. It just seems to me that we would have to raise rates much, much higher just because of the $54 million projected in self-pay. But tell me what you think about that.
I think that, we can take a look at those self-pay, but some of those self-pays are gonna have to happen just because there's a bunch of stuff that's just not impact fee eligible that as we continue to grow, it's just putting pressure on the company to, make those decisions. Some of it is to support additional staffing. Some of it is to, help with reliability measures that we got to address along with it.
Well, you can
so there's that pressure, but that's why I wanted to get it in front of you.
Well, you can see I think you can see the board's concern, especially with what the complaint was earlier. If we have to raise rates an additional $6 million alone per year, that is a huge increase per year. Seriously, Jason, that's a huge increase right there just for self-pay projects. Now, granted, maybe all of them won't be needed all at once, but still, that's the number that's being proposed, basically $6 million a year for the next 9 years to be able to reach that $54 million of self-pay projects. And that's really concerning to me when it comes to rates.
I agree. But there's some things in there that are pretty expensive that we just can't wait on. Some of it is like wildfire control. I mean, there's some stuff that we've got in there that has zero to do with growth, but we've got to add it because we can't find insurance anymore for wildfires. There's just some pressures in some areas that we've just never had before. That, the board can say, hey, don't worry about that stuff, and we can remove it. Those are just tough decisions that we've added them in there. you know, but we can definitely cut them. But, you know,
Well-
there's several projects that are along that line that, you know, are literally like risk mitigation out there.
Mhm. Could you make sure those are identified clearly for us and perhaps resend this to us? I'm sorry, I'm not seeing it on the screen right now, and I didn't want to go to my own file to try to figure it
No,
out.
you're good.
But
We'll
is
go
it
through and we'll identify some of those projects that are that
Right.
way. And we'll also identify some ones that, you know, that's maybe a wish list item, and maybe the board can remove it. So.
Okay, the other thing that I've been asking for, and I want to ask again, please, is the return on investment for at least the projects you're identifying in the next bond. And you can also do a cost benefit analysis for those next bond projects so that we can see the clearer picture, not just return on investment. And I know a lot of them are impact fee eligible. I still think it's good to get at least the return on investment for the impact fee eligible. I just think as good as we're trying to capture those impact fees, we know that puts pressure on rates, and I'm definitely seeing it with the self-pay projects as well as perhaps the future bonding projects, waiting for those impact fees to come in.
You know, we talked about that. We'll come back with kind of that in June and kind of go over all of that. You know, as far as the generation assets, the value they bring, you know, we'll do our best stab at, you know, the load serving projects, but, you know, you build a substation to serve the load, and you're not going to build it until you've got the load. I mean, you know, Jailhouse is maxed out with load dang
Right.
near, and
Right.
so that's why we need that next substation, is because we have ratepayers that are going to connect to it, and you know, you just don't build them unless the load's there.
I understand, and that's going to be the Daniels Canyon substation, right?
Maybe,
yeah,
that'd be the east substation.
yeah.
You mean east as far as
There's north.
If the Sidla one goes, then that one will happen before the Daniels Canyon.
before Daniels
If
Canyon?
Daniels goes, then Daniels Canyon will. They
So,
both go, both substations go. And that's the other thing to consider here. Unfortunately, Heber Light Power is at the mercy of, in this case, Heber City and Wasatch County, allowing these major developers to come in. We don't really have a lot of options, but we have to serve that load, and that means a $17 million substation gets built.
I understand that, Bart. I wish Sid were here to hear it. So Kendall and Bart and Jason, depending on what Sitla ends up with, is Sitla prepared to build their own substation? But the point is that would they still dedicate it to Heber Light Power? I'm assuming they would have to, but you see what I mean? Is that something that can be negotiated so we're not on the hook for the initial substation costs? You see what I mean? Go
Just
ahead.
to make you aware, Kendall had to leave,
Oh,
so Kendall has left.
Just in
Wait.
the middle of the last conversation. So,
Yeah,
so there's only half of us here, right?
yeah.
yes.
I don't think we have a quorum anymore.
Yeah, don't make any decisions.
No, we can't make any more decisions, but there's no decisions on the agenda. So.
Okay, well, that's too bad because I would really hope that could be negotiated with Sitla up front.
It's important to know, if Sitla land stays in the county, Rocky Mountain Power serves them because that's their certificated area.
I
If it's
see.
into the city, then we have to serve it. So.
Luckily, we have
Okay.
no interest in that. So,
Okay, well, that's good to remember, Aaron, right?
yeah.
Okay, okay.
I jokingly said, luckily, we don't have any interest in that. Of course, then again, we have
Oh.
an extra.
Is
Okay, I'm
that
not
all
gonna
the
cry.
questions on Any other questions on the capital plan? If not, we'll go to item number 9, the wholesale power report. Emily?
Sure. Oh, there we go. Okay, nothing really significant. We're under budget still.
That's pretty significant.
That is, it's a good, significant. And let's see.
Primarily temperatures, I'm guessing.
Yeah, you know, primarily just pricing has been really good, which is scary for summer because I feel like they always balance themselves out, you know, so we'll see. Summer price, it's already starting to go up. So I think we're gonna see really high summer pricing and maybe start tipping the other way. We are over on energy. We're 7% above last year, and I forecasted we'd be about 5% over last year. So energy's up. Overall, we're under budget. That could change this summer. So that's really what these are. We're about $7 a megawatt under what I had anticipated costs would be, which is really good. So that's what, you know, summer, looking ahead to summer, you know, we want to remain under budget, right? But, and we have a really good plan going forward. That lower red line is kind of the average forecast, and then the blue line would be the higher forecast. That yellow you see is generation. So with the market purchases that we have in place and all of our other resources, I feel like we can really manage almost a peak with the generation that we have. So that's really good. We're in a really good position. The only thing that could, you know, derail us right now is the drought, hydropower. So Jordan will just cut back today to half of their usual generation this time of year because they're trying to, so, you know, that's already been reduced. And then we have this looming smallmouth bass flow thing at the Glen Canyon Dam to try to mitigate the humpback chub. Last year it cost the crisp members $20 million. They're anticipating it to be more like $200 million this year. So that is really the big, you know, wild card for summer.
You mentioned drought. I mean, every time I drive by Deer Creek to Renell, they seem to be.
Yeah, it's interesting because the way the water works isn't always reflective. You know, what you see isn't always reflective of conditions, right? So, yeah, Deer Creek's really full. Jordanelle's only 5% below capacity, but they don't know if they're going to be able to fill it all the way. So, you know, we're really more about water user needs than we are drought here locally. But as far as the federal hydropower goes, that's really drought.
Okay.
Yeah, I shouldn't have lumped them together. I usually separate the two, but yeah, that's really what's driving the lower hydropower. And then when they do these flows, they bypass the generators and, you know, try to cool the river to try to, you know, stop these smallmouth bass from spawning. So that's really what I kind of wanted just to put on your radar is there was Hageman from Wyoming introduced a bill for basically the Basin Preservation Act, which Senator Lee and also Senator Curtis is co-sponsoring. It moved on to be the Basin Fund Preservation Act, which is a memorandum of understanding basically to have WAPA work with the Glen Canyon committee to try to come up with other solutions to this problem other than just bypassing millions and millions of dollars of hydropower water generation water. So just if you do happen to be talking to any of these, their staff or these, you know, representatives, Congresswoman Malloy is also a sponsor of this. You know, just let them know we appreciate this work and we're supportive of it. It's really important to federal hydropower for this to move forward. So I linked some articles about it. Just, you know, if you do have an opportunity to speak to anyone, just to kind of get some more information, and this is kind of why it's important for us. So yeah, it's pretty important. So it'll help us out a lot if it keeps moving. So that's all I have, unless you guys have questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Item number 10, GM report.
No pressure, but
I'll go.
now is the time for brevity. Actually, I guess we can end the meeting if one of us stands up and leaves.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not hard.
I'm just kidding.
Let me get into Zoom again. So GM report, we talked about UAMPS a little bit. There's a lot of talk continuing on them getting prepared for the energy day ahead market. That's going to be a real hard one for them. And IPA report, the IPA project or the IPP project is moving forward. I actually went to Delta, seen the progress down there. They do have a couple of issues that they're battling. They don't think the gas units will be online, by the June, July deadline. I mean, they are running them, they're commissioning them. They ran into some issues on the combustion chamber side. They're diving into those problems, and they're now pushing back kind of when those units will be online to kind of maybe August, September type time frame. It's still a bustling hive of activity down there. It's just a massive project. And if the gas units do get pushed, then their current plan is to keep coal at kind of that 40% capacity factor, running one unit until July, and then ramp up to 85% and continue to take the coal deliveries that they have scheduled, but not increase any more coal deliveries. So there will be a coal pile to continue to burn into August and possibly even into September. But the hope is that at least one of those gas units comes online and is ready to put out 800 or 400 megawatts that will be able to decrease the pressure on the coal units. I think it's important to always keep in mind that the California purchasers cannot get their energy delivered to them on that DC transmission line unless there's enough inertia there at the IPP plant. And I think it requires about 300 and something megawatts so that they can continue to take other renewable deliveries down that DC line. So they're just at a super critical juncture down there, and it will be interesting to see how the next few months play out for sure. There's some people that work there that are under extreme pressures, I think. So I just wanted to quickly go through that. One of the capital plans that I discussed was the plant one replacement. We have conceptual drawings here, and this is very important for the board to take a look at because this is what's conceptually been put together. So this is our current admin building that's being built. Building that replacement of plant one directly to the west side of it, and making it so that it's a 6-bay alignment. Now, we're not required to do 6 bays. We are under contract with Caterpillar to do testing for 3 bays. So this can definitely still be scaled down. This is just what we did a fatal flaw analysis on for the emissions, so the environmental, what we could ultimately have in this and still get permitted. And it can handle 6 size, just overall size. capacity at the Heber substation, because that's where we would take delivery of these units. We did, critical kind of flaw analysis on that, and also natural gas requirements. So without doing an upgrade to our current gas line and gas meter. So we could go up to 6. And like I say, we do have kind of a requirement, since we moved all those units out of plant 1 and into current existing bays. We do need to really build something in order to continue the testing program, which has been very lucrative for us. It's been one of the cheapest energies in our portfolio. When we do have a test unit in there.
So you're saying we need 3 more in order to have room for the, we need 3 more than the 3 that we need in order to have room for the testing, or just the 3 is inclusive of the testing, but this building could do up to 6.
It could go up to 6 if you wanted more availability to add internal generation in the future.
Gotcha.
So
without some kind of major redesign or something like that,
right?
They're just
so
built in such a way that
it's just going to be built in such a way that the size units that we're currently running would be able to be installed in these bays. Now, the number that is in the capital plan is to fully load these with units and everything else. But all we're kind of anticipating right now is to build this shell and then add units incrementally as needed, and also have base for testing.
So then we don't pay. Oh, sorry.
No, and this would require that extension of the gas line.
Yeah, so the gas line, we would bring from the other campus, which is over here, and where we're removing plant 1, there's a manifold where these big gas lines go to each plant. With plant 1 being tore down, we would take that manifold position on the gas meter and bring it into here. So we trench from the gas meter, which is located over by the train, over to here to get that gas line. That's got to happen anyway, because we're high pressure customers on the gas system, and overall, just heating this building type costs will be much cheaper on the wholesale system than just having Enbridge come and install a commercial meter. So either way, we've got to pay for it. Either Enbridge has got to bring a commercial meter in and they charge us for it, or we just come off of our high pressure meter and come over here and hit it. So
when we, if we do testing there, do we, like if we were to build out for 6, but not populate them even with test units right now, or not populate all of them, do we have a lot of costs that would be incurred each time a test comes on? Or is it something where the test is kind of?
No, when they bring a test unit in, they install it and then we run it. And there's also, but we never run it above market. So if they want to run additional hours, then they pay for the fuel to run that unit. And then there's no O&M costs associated with those test units, because they cover all of that while they're in that test phase. So what we're really doing is just harvesting energy at something under market cost, because it just never exceeds market. If it does, it's a huge pain for Emily, but she gets a bill sent to them for the gas they use that was outside the market range. So
what was at the beginning of this, you said this is an important thing for the board to realize, and I think I missed the catch, or missed the thing that you want us to. Like, what's the risk, or what's the thing you wanted to realize? I don't know if we asked questions and kind of interrupted your thought, but I missed the important thing the board should realize.
Just right now, we've done critical flaw for the 6 units. And, you know, at the 3500 series Caterpillar machines that they've been testing here, you know, those, if this thing got filled up with those over the next 10 years or whatever, you could get things permitted, you could do the electrical connection, and you'd have enough gas pipeline. So those critical flaws have been, that we've done that. It can go up to 6, but like I said, it can be scaled down to, if the board chose to scale down, then that'd be a cheaper building because it's less square footage you're building.
Can the square footage be used for anything else in the meantime? Like if you put 2 units on the far right, can you do anything else on the left?
Oh yeah, I mean, all of our empty bays are
Storage or
being
something.
utilized with storage or something.
But your capital plan has all 6 built. So it has the unit costs in there as well.
Yeah.
And it's highly unrealistic that we would, if we expanded to 10 over the next, or sorry, to 6 over the next 10 years. Don't you think it's somewhat unrealistic that we would be paying for them? Given that CAT has been.
So last time,
for so long.
so the reason we had the room, one of the reasons we had the room is because we had empty bays, and they were the three test bays of Caterpillars. And you got to remember, if they bring a test unit in here, every one of the units that we own were test units. So we don't have a unit that we didn't buy used from Caterpillar after the end of the test.
What I mean is your capital facilities plan right now is the full non-lease back, non-used, non-tested units cost. It's the worst case scenario. Caterpillar stops the test program and we have to populate them all at our own time.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking. Is that number is a pretty good number to even fill them up with the price of what we're currently paying for test units.
And so therefore somewhat unlikely, given that we've had test units in the past, our history is to buy test units, and we don't foresee an actual need immediately. I still think, like, I love the idea of planning for more space. That actually makes good sense. But the capital plan number as it exists, probably unlikely.
Big number.
Does that have any bearing if you know, we build the whole facility and we're only using 3 versus 6, you know, sometime down the road in terms of impact fee eligibility or not?
I know this.
In other words,
This is a generation plan. You know, the initial spend for the building will be impact fee eligible, and then each unit will be impact fee eligible.
Okay.
It's in the plan right now to start gathering those costs to ultimately fill this thing. But it'll be piecemeal, just like Southfield was piecemeal through all the years of the capital plan, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Anything else?
No, I just wanted you guys to take a look at that. I mean, that's where we're at. Think about this. I'll probably be coming in June. So let's say you want to scale it back. If not, we'll probably start trying to go to planning and working this through Heber City. So, which will be fun.
And this was part of the next bond project, right, Jason?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Did you hear, Mayor, the question I asked about the total number? The total number is for the building plus the street purchase price on all of the units.
On all 6 units? Or just the 3, and then the other 3 would be test units that Caterpillar supplies?
Yes.
So it would be the whole building, 6 bays, plus the purchase of 3 natural gas peaker units, with the other 3 to be supplied by Caterpillar when and if they are ready.
Whenever they test, yes.
So all of that would be impact fee eligible.
Yes, that's why it's in there. And it's
Okay,
a big number that we added to the impact fee,
it's 30 million, right?
31 million, yeah.
31 million. And,
That's a level 3 estimate that we got, so.
okay. And then final question, if we were to bond for it, when would construction likely begin?
Just as soon as we got all the permitting and everything like that, as we worked through the Heber City planning process,
So
building.
it could happen, well, relatively soon. Jason, would it be as quiet as, or at least, would it be as quiet or quieter than the plant where you've moved the old plant one units into?
Well, this one's, from what we're being told, is gonna be very quiet, quieter than the facilities we have today.
Okay, all right, that's good news. I mean, for peace and quiet, that's all I'm saying. It's not good news on the money. So thank you for letting us know that.
Any other questions on the GM report?
Just on this was what I was gonna share on the building update.
I'm sorry.
Maybe in June, we can go down and take a walk through the building. We'll be a little further along.
Let's do that. Why don't we meet at 4:00 at the building and take a tour? And you can also show us about where the peaker plant facility could be.
Yeah, we can go over that. As long as it's safe. There's so much stuff going on there. If there's a big project out there and I deem it unsafe, then we won't do it. But
we can wait till July if needed.
Yeah, so, okay, that's my report.
So does this mean without a quorum, Adam, that we can or cannot go into closed session?
Probably technically can't make that motion, that decision.
Oh, that's right. We can't.
So,
Kevin, I'll turn it back to you, Kevin.
Oh, yeah, we can all just leave and we will end the conversation. Yeah.
So are we?
We don't need to close. We don't need a closed session.
We'll just push that to the next.
And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have about legal stuff. That would be helpful.
Okay.
I think Adam covered what we were talking about and we could talk about in executive session and his letter to you.
Okay.
So please get with him if you have any questions on that. So.
Adam, was it regarding the email communication earlier today? Was any of that on there?
Yeah, I mean, nothing in particular, just answer questions, fill in blanks, make sure you're all in the loop as much as you want to be.
Okay.
But nothing specific.
Would you just encourage us one-on-one, email you if we have questions?
Call, text, email, grab me afterwards, buy me lunch,
Nope. You're the lawyer.
I guess
Okay.
with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Go for it. I don't think anyone will challenge it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead. I'll second it. I just don't know if we can actually vote without a quorum.
Technically, probably not, but like I said, we're pretty safe from any challenge on a motion to adjourn.
I'll move that we adjourn in the meeting.
We can
I'll
just
second
be
it.
all the same meeting.
All in favor? Aye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Mayor.
Take care tomorrow. Good luck.